Welcome to Buzzn The Tower, a podcast dedicated to the movies of the 1980s and the 1990s. I'm Mo Shapiro. Joining me as always, Max Sanders. If this is your first time to our podcast, please don't forget to leave a 5-star review, subscribe, follow. We're on all podcast players, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, you name it, we're on it. You can also find us on YouTube at Buzzn The Tower. All social media platforms, specifically TikTok. That's the good one where the fine, nice material is. You can find us using our tag at Buzzn The Tower, patreon.com/Buzzn The Tower to support the show. BuzzNTheTower.com is our website where you can pick up officially licensed merchandise, which is it's choice material, trust me. And then, of course, our sponsors, 80stees.com, the best in t-shirts from the era of the 80s and 90s. Today's episode, I'm always nervous. You never know if the celebrities are going to come through, but I'm feeling real good about this one. Lin Shaye, actress from A Nightmare on Elm Street, the Farrelly Brothers movies, Dumb and Dumber, Kingpin, and Something About Mary. She has been in the industry for a long time, and she is likely in at least one of your favorite movies, and that is who we have on the show today to chat about her career and all things awesome. Lin, it is my unbelievable honor and pleasure to welcome you to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really well, and thank you very much for inviting me.
Wow, the thank you is doubled and back to you, because when you reached out to us, it was one of the cooler moments. So Max manages all of our social media, so he'll go through our Instagram, our Facebook, and in the middle of recording, he said, Mo, I've got a surprise for you that I want to share with you, because I never check any of them. And he said, go into our Instagram account. So I went into the Instagram account and he said, I want you to look for a message from Lin Shaye, which when he said the name, I immediately knew who it was. And sure enough, there you were. And I think we owe a huge thank you to your friend who saw our tribute to you on Instagram and made you aware of it. Does that sound right? Or am I misquoting that?
Yeah, and at the moment, I can't remember who it was, but I think it was sort of a Facebook friend from afar. I mean, who doesn't even live here. And it was really, listen, it's wonderful to be acknowledged and to be thought about by people in a positive way. We all know that I think emanates, it's like you're ready. Somewhere we received that from afar. So it really was a lovely, it was a lovely thing to find. And I thought your program was great. So I'm very pleased to be here with you now.
Well, we couldn't be happier. Your agent was just great to work with, and she was fantastic when we messaged her. And when she gave the green light, I was pretty elated on the show, to say the least. And so, we're a podcast that covers the movies of the 80s and 90s, and you have a white knuckle grip on some of our favorite movies. Like, you show up time and time again in some of the absolute best movies, and we're going to hop into all of that. But the thing that we have to talk about first, the most important thing we have to talk about, is when Max and I were doing a little bit of research on you, we found the single most important fact that we could ever want to discuss, which is you, just like the two of us, have graduated from the wonderful University of Michigan in Ann Arbor.
Woo! Yeah.
Go blue. Go blue. So that's why we enjoy each other so much, because you understand what it is to be an elite genius and go to the best college in the world.
I was very lucky because I lived in Detroit. I don't think my grades would have gotten me in if I was out of state. But that really was, I mean, really true of the most fun years I've had in my lifetime. I mean, Ann Arbor is still a beautiful little town, and I had great teachers that I still remember. I really had formative experiences there in terms of learning and theater. Their theater department was amazing, and I got to do some great shows there too. So it was really a great experience.
So you have to promise us, if you are ever visiting Ann Arbor, Max and I met each other bartending at a bar in Ann Arbor, and Max is still bartending there. So
what's the bar?
So it's called Scorekeepers now, but it was called Dooley's in the 1970s. So it might have been during your time or not, but in the 1970s, it used to be a mortuary from the 40s to the 60s on Maynard Avenue. And then in 1972, I believe it became Dooley's.
Yeah.
Well, I don't. It sounds familiar, but that's might just be me trying to make it sound familiar. Yeah. But that it was a mortuary is very apropos.
Yeah. Well, trust me, once you visit it, it's very apropos. Yeah. it still has a lot of ghosts in there. I would argue for sure.
Okay, I'm not going.
Yeah, no, not the good kind either. Well, I will also say before we jump into a little bit about your career, I want to make sure that I bring up some projects that you're working on right now, because you had mentioned the theater school, and I know obviously your sweet spot has been in film, but I believe that you just finished a one-woman show called Tripping on Life. And before you talk about it, I want to give it a plug. You can go to trippingonlifetheplay.com. It is, I believe, available on Red Coral Universe and Broadway On Demand. And you can find both those redcoraluniverse.com/trippingonlife and broadwayondemand.com. Tell us a little bit about this project. It sounds very cool.
So long story short, we came up with about 36 pages of story. It basically is about my life in 1968, San Francisco, when I was 23 years old, and it was my first love. So it's really a love story in a way, and your first departure from family to find your independent emotion, your emotions that are not connected to family, but to someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And it was we had full houses. It was wildly received. And my big brother, Bob Shaye, who is a very prominent person in our industry.
New Line Cinema, right?
Of New Line Cinema.
Yeah.
That was my brother. And yeah, he's got, boy, does he have a story. In 1968, he created one of the most important companies in the film world. They came to see the show here in LA.
Oh, that's great. I
guess about a week or so later, I just got a note from Bob, because people said, "Oh, it's great. It's an hour long. You should take it to New York. You should do stuff." And I'm going, "Okay, right, whatever." And so Bob, we talked and we thought, let's do it. But I had a ball.
Oh,
I mean,
fantastic.
It was such an exciting experience for me, and people loved the show.
What an incredible story and journey when Gina made us aware of the projects you were working on. Max and I kind of talked about this, just what a wonderful career. And I don't want to speak of it in past tense, because you're obviously still in the thick of doing all these wonderful things, but going back to, you go to the University of Michigan, you graduate, you go to Columbia, is that right? Or
yeah,
okay,
I went to theater in their theater department. Was the first
the masters. That's right,
theater arts masters.
And so you enter. And by the way, I want to be so respectful of your time, because if we talked about every single thing you'd ever done, I would have to kidnap you and spend 5 hours talking to you on our podcast.
218 roles.
Yeah.
Every time I go through the Rolodex and the IMDb, it takes me a solid 12 minutes. I have to stop.
So many. I mean, just and everything from film to sitcoms, and obviously for our show, we try to focus on the 80s and 90s. But
it was hard this time.
our first introduction to you, of course, was A Nightmare on Elm Street, and I think it's interesting because in the horror film genre community, which is, I mean, you've got anime and you've got horror films, and they are just
and true crime,
and they are committed to that genre. And as much as you would say that people recognize you, obviously, from Kingpin and Something About Mary, and don't forget Dumb and Dumber too. The Farrelly brothers, you must be having dinner with those.
That was a big deal for me. If you wanted to talk about that.
Oh, we're going to. Don't you worry. Absolutely. But like even though that's where we are really kind of in love with your career, I know in that horror genre that it starts with A Nightmare on Elm Street, and then not in the 80s or 90s, but the Insidious films. I guess my question is, it's kind of a two-part question. One is if there's just anecdotally anything you wanted to share from your experience on Nightmare on Elm Street, but then also, does that ever trip you up in your own mind, just this kind of fluidity of your career where you've moved from horror genre to like being in 2 or 3 of the greatest comedies ever, right? I mean, the Farrelly brothers reestablished my passion for film. As a 19, 20-year-old watching those movies, I was like, this is all I want to do is watch movies like this for the rest of my life. And now, as you just spent time talking about your one-woman show on Broadway, basically, is it ever... I know I'm throwing a lot at you. So first question is any stories, anything you want to share about Nightmare on Elm Street? And my second question is that one of your favorite aspects of your career? Just that you've kind of circled around the moon in that sense a couple times.
Nightmare on Elm Street was, I was, sort of a theater actress. I mean, I started out in theater. I never thought about movies really very much. And Bob started New Line, my brother started, as we said, New Line Cinema. And Wes was very much a part of that. I mean, Bob had done, they done distribution at a certain point. That was where they started out, as really distributing foreign films. I mean, Bob was a Fulbright scholar in Sweden, and he met a lot of international film people, young people making movies. So he was that was going to be his idea, was to distribute these small independent films to college campuses. That was the beginning of New Line. And Wes came to him with Nightmare on Elm Street. And I guess, from what I understand, everybody had turned it down. Nobody wanted anything to do with it. And he brought it to Bob, and Bob said, yeah, let's do it. It was sort of one of those. The first movie I think New Line produced was something called, I'm blanking on the name. It was with Robert Forster and Fiona Lewis. I'm blanking on the title. But when Wes came to him with Nightmare on Elm Street, Bob thought, let's do it. So the teacher, was in the movie. And so Bob said, and I was always kind of like, Bob,
remember me, your sister.
Yeah, but, and he would be, as a typical big brother, he was always very mean to me.
Sure.
and I'm not. So suddenly I get, but behind the scenes, which I now have found out, Bob was very, very supportive of me.
Oh, that's great.
And so he said to Wes, let my sister play the teacher. And so I did. So that was it. They gave me this one scene. And actually, when I watch it, it was a really good scene. I mean, it was just one day I met Wes. Wes, by the way, was one of the most generous, wonderful people in the business and on the planet, not just in business. Mm-hmm. He was this sort of beatific. He was very tall, and he had this wonderful rosiness about his self. His face was always a little bit flushed. And he looked kind of beatific. I mean, that was my experience with him. And he was one of the most generous, kindest people in the business I'd ever met. And he was very sweet. I mean, we shot it in whatever it was, one morning. And that was it. I mean, it was just sort of, I figured I was very excited to be in it. And then the rest is kind of history, that the movie became so important in a way. Right. And so little did I know, in a way, it was a launching pad for me as well. People loved the teacher.
Well, and I promise, I genuinely, before you ever even reached out to us and we would talk about these movies and we would look at all the different scenes, and it's so true. In a movie that's got great acting, good acting, mediocre acting, campiness and seriousness, when she falls asleep and you're waking her up and you're saying, I'm going to get your mom, I'm not saying this as a slight to anyone. You can tell that you're a classically trained actress. Like, it feels like
it amplifies a movie.
Right.
So
you're like, this is real acting going on in between. By the way, Robert Englund, who I love, like his over the topness of Freddy Krueger, like it just all perfectly fit together. And it was a really well played role and fun to watch.
Well, I really consider myself an actress. I mean, I studied, I was, I really did. I have a great background, and mostly in theater in the beginning, but, I did go to Columbia, their theater arts program, and I lived in New York for almost 10 years doing theater. I'm nonstop, off Broadway, every little hole in Manhattan I was in. I remember having 103 temperature and marching through the snow to the Playbox Theater, where we had an audience of 2 for the play I was doing, with a 3-person play.
Well, you paid your dues. I think there's value in that. It shows in your performances. It's great.
And I really know I'm a really good actress. I mean, I have whatever that thing is, I can pretend to be other people and really invest. I'm not patting myself on the back. It's like something I can do. And I credit my parents for some of that, because they didn't squash my emotions.
Oh, that's awesome.
They let me be who I was. Yeah. And not always I was often in my room by myself doing stuff. But it was sort of nurturing to being independently and truly expressive without pleasing other people, but just being able to really believe enough that you have enough of you have enough value to be exactly who you are.
Yeah.
And I'm very grateful for that because that really still filters into the work I do.
So 1984, you get The Nightmare on Elm Street, and then again, a movie that Max and I talk about frequently, Brewster's Millions. You have a small role when Richard Pryor is running for office, mayor, I think.
Yeah.
And you're one of the newswomen who is interviewing him.
Oh,
no, go ahead and do it. I'll be quiet. I got to see this. I love it.
That was Walter Hill, and I was in 4 Walter Hill films, all very small roles. You probably know him better than I do, Ray. The Long Riders was the first one.
Okay.
And I met Walter through James Keach, who was a friend. We had actually, this is a long sort of crazy story too. We did a play in New York, The Tempest, which is a Shakespeare, where he played Caliban and Ferdinand. He played the love interest and the beast.
Oh, wow.
He played both characters. And Sally Kirkland played Miranda. And I played Ariel, which was the sprite. And I remember coming upside down a ladder, like crawling down a ladder. I had done a lot of physical work with a group in New York, and I was very much part of that part of the growing theater. The open theater was a very, they were sort of framed from I think of Czechoslovakia, Grotowski, who was a very famous innovator in theater because he used sound and movement to create his characters rather than just vocal, sort of people just standing there saying lines. And so his work was very physical. So I got hired to play Ariel, and I had all these great ideas of standing on my head and flying down the ladder. And that's what we did. And that was how I met Jimmy Keach. And then he actually was going to do The Long Riders with Stacy, the brothers. And which is a wonderful movie if you guys haven't ever seen it. So Jimmy said, would you like to meet Walter Hill? And he has these parts of these prostitutes. And somehow I've played a lot of prostitutes also in my career. So I went, and I even remember what I was wearing. And Walter is an extraordinary guy and still an extraordinary talent and creator. And so he hired me to play this one little role and in The Long Riders. And I don't have my own resume up in front of me, but you'll see I think there's 4 different films I did, just little tiny roles. Yeah. Like I was I think it was, I just remember standing behind, I was like some sort of office worker, and I just have a few lines, but I loved working with Walter, and we had a real kind of nice friendship that was, he knew he could count on me to do something nice with a small role. And I'm fine with that. I don't have to be the lead in anything or everything I do. It's just fun to find the truth of a moment with a character. I find that is of great value.
Well, I think that perspective is wonderful because it's, and I hope that you get this kind of feedback from more than just people like Max and I, but I think your genuine joy in what you do and the roles you have, no matter how big or how small, is in large part why it's so enjoyable to watch you do them. Because all of these roles that we'll go over, like we just talked about Brewster's Millions, then you get into Critters, where you're so fun at the front desk in the jail at Critters. And each of these roles, they feel very cared for and curated by you. And as a result of that, it's not that they stand out, although when we talk about the Farrelly Brothers movies, they do stand out as some of the best roles in the movies. But in these smaller roles that you're in, it looks like you're having a great time. And I think that gets buy-in from the viewer, that it's fun to watch you act.
Oh, that's a great compliment. And it is the truth. I approach everything with real seriousness. There's something I'm working on now. And, I love and respect my own mind and imagination, because I feel like there's a separation, and it's go that way. And I'm kind of watching these ideas, and if I don't have a pencil, I'm always upset because if I don't write them down, I don't remember. I mean, it's like sort of another side of my psyche almost that gets stimulated by material, and I try to catch it. Because if I don't catch it, then I lose it. It goes away.
I just text Max if I have a middle of the night idea so that it's copied and kept in there, and then he ignores it because he's hurtful to me. But that's okay. He likes half my ideas at best.
No, but if you don't write, and sometimes you write it down in the morning, you look on what was that? I don't even remember. I still don't remember it.
These fever dreams, right? You have these crazy ideas, and you're like, I don't know why I thought chocolate milk needed to be paired with my cell phone, but somehow that seemed like a good idea at the time.
It was about dunking it. That was not
something. I know there's something. Critters. We don't have to talk too much about it, but this is the inspiration of the video that Max and I created. That was you're giving Lin Shaye her flowers because we did an episode on The Running Man, and the running
you picked the smallest role. Too.
I know,
it's so interesting that like you hyper fixated
because I remember we watched The Running Man, and I'm like, I know
I have one line.
I looked, I go, I know who that is.
Yeah.
And then so I'm like, all right, let's see what else, because I'm telling you, I know who that is, and it was just I could see it, and I went to IMDb, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh wait a second, she is in Every Wonderful Movie Ever. So I know it was a small role. But you've been in these fascinating movies, right? So Nightmare on Elm Street, the house that New Line was built on. Then you move into Critters, which kind of starts to embed you a little bit more in the horror genre. But The Running Man, I mean, this is based on a Stephen King novel, which very few people know because he did it under one of his pseudonym names. And in Arnold Schwarzenegger during his ascent, right? Yeah. And is it just the case for you? Was it always just another day of work? Not that you didn't love the roles and everything, but or were there times where you were just like, wow? Like I just feel like being on set with Schwarzenegger in the 80s, you got to be like, wow, this is something. That
was a really weird. I mean, it doesn't always work out. I don't even think I met Arnold Schwarzenegger.
That's right, because of the days you were filming. Yeah,
because it's just it's sort of you come in and when you're in, you have one line or whatever, and that was actually a very kind of weird experience because Paul Michael Glaser, I believe, was the director. Mm-hmm. And I don't think he liked me or something. There was some weird, and I don't remember how I got cast. I can't even remember that part. But I think I just, I was kind of excited to do it and everything. And I just remember having that one line. I think, and I hope I'm not talking out of school here, but I think he kept making me say the line over and over. It's like, do it like, and it's like, you're doing it like he's telling you to do it. But he was kind of a very sort of self-possessed person, if I recall. And I was nothing. I mean, I had, it wasn't my movie. I mean, my God, I had one, and I think he was trying to sort of prove his, his directorial promise.
Asserting some authority.
Yeah, and kind of not abusing me, but kind of using me for that.
Yeah.
And I just remember feeling a little bit, it was not fun.
It was a bummer.
What was fun was the hairdo was great and the wardrobe was fun because it was futuristic at the time. And I was always happy to work. I mean, I was always excited to go to set, no matter what. One line was fine. Yeah. I mean, I no problem with. And I've always been like that. I mean, it doesn't have to be, I just like coming and doing and being there and contributing. I've never had, I never had aspirations, ever. I still don't. I love working and I love the opportunity when I get to be with people I'm working with. And, but I never really, my thing was loving acting. It was never about, I want to go to Hollywood and I'm going to be a movie star. I'm going to be on Broadway and that's just never that's not where I come from. For better or for worse, maybe I'd have a bigger career if I did.
Well, I would say just for better in the sense that when you look at, and again, we're removed from that culture. We're watching it through the lens of, TMZ and articles on the internet and watching on television. But it seems like the mentality that you chose to take has probably led you to just be mentally a healthier person. When you're chasing after acceptance, that's usually not a good thing to chase after. When you're chasing after passion, that usually leads you to a better, happier place.
And that doesn't mean I didn't want to get the part because I would sit and wait and hope, and I would do yoga and I would contemplate and I would focus on, the answer is yes, the answer is yes. And then sometimes it was and sometimes it wasn't. But that was just sort of personal achievement, wanting to be personally successful. But it didn't have to do with, I mean, it didn't have to, I've never had goals. Maybe there's something wrong with that.
No,
it sounds awesome.
I'd like to introduce you to Max Sanders.
Yeah.
He has absolutely no goals. You guys are
Like you
kindred
said,
spirits.
things fall on your head, and it's some incredible things. My God,
Max just got married a couple years ago to this just stunning, brilliant, motivated, incredible woman who fell on his head. Like he falls into these incredible situations, not pursuing anything other than his own.
My passion for passion.
Your passion is for gratification the day that you wake up.
Yeah.
You're like, I want to be gratified today.
I mean, you have to figure, I mean, I really do cosmically. I mean, there really is, that's all a real thing, about position and energy and how you, if you're a receiver or a giver, and if you, at least have, someone once told me, and I never go to sleep with a clenched fist.
That's good. I like that. Yeah.
And I really, I never,
weakness.
I mean, it's such a stupid thing to say, because I mean, who goes to sleep with but I realized the other night, I had my hand under the pillow and I had a clenched fist.
Oh no.
I just thought, open your hand, Linda. Yeah. My name is really Linda. So when I talk to myself, it's Linda, and immediately I fell asleep. It's the sort of, there's that moment of, we don't realize what we hold back from ourselves.
Absolutely.
Both from the outside and from the inside. I mean, I think that's, so I have to work on that some of the time. And of course, you change as you grow. I mean, I can't believe how old I am and how long I've been doing what I do. I feel like I'm 30 years old. I mean, I swear to God, I was just thinking that this morning, and I feel like I have the energy of a 30-year-old.
So Max, Max does a lot of our kind of like internet sleuthing and research, and he told me how old you were, and I don't trust him most of the time because he makes a lot of clerical errors. So I had to like double check it, because to your point, we watched interviews, we've seen your work. I mean, even just talking to you right now, I think 30 is about what I'd mark it at. I'm 46, but I regard myself as an 85-year-old. I'm kind of a curmudgeon, and I've got
too old for me.
I've got a sore back all the time. Yeah, exactly. That's awesome. So from running, and again, I know I'm skipping around a little bit, and because I want to be respectful of your time, because I could honestly see us talking for 10 hours. So I want to make sure I kind of move through, but Pump Up the Volume. This is another movie where Max and I just did an episode on it, and I was like, there she is again.
Yeah.
In fact, wasn't it that we found Lin Shaye in this that led to us doing Pump Up the Volume as an episode? Yeah. Again, not a huge role, but what a fun movie. I just, for us, just encapsulated the
90s.
The 90s.
Angst,
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about Pump Up the Volume?
There's really not much to tell either. These were all New Line movies, and basically, either I badgered my brother or he would find a role for, and he would put me in his movie. I mean, that was really, and again, it was sort of that sort of dual, kind of relationship where, I mean, Bob without my brother, I might not even have a career. And that's the truth. I mean, maybe my talent would have, erupted somewhere and people would have gone, oh yeah, let's hire her, whatever. But he really gave me opportunity, and every opportunity he gave me, I did a good job. I did the work. And I think he recognized that. And, again, I learned more about how Bob felt about me from the way he talked to other people rather than to me. I actually have
that's classic sibling, by the way.
Boy, but there's a great story with the movie that he directed, and I played this 50s mom. And there was a part where, and Bob, being directed by Bob was very scary to me.
I can imagine.
And I just remember in the one scene, I'm opening the door and I'm talking to my son, and I'm sort of getting him all like together. He's going out or something.
Is it Book of Love?
Yes, Book of Love.
Awesome. This guy,
yeah.
Excellent
100%.
work.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I should always remember that. But it was Book of Love, and Bob, so I just didn't remember I was supposed to close the door after my son left. So I hear Bob from the back going, okay, first time we did it. And he said, you got to close the door. I said, okay. So second time we did it, he said, Linda, call me Linda. You got to close the door. I said, okay. So, sorry, Bob. I said, okay. Next time we did it, I didn't close the door. The third time I hear, Linda, close the door. So that was my experience working with my brother.
We should definitely make sure our sisters watch this episode.
Absolutely.
This is very
close the door,
be
Linda.
cathartic for them to watch. Well, so to your point about some of these just being obviously, Bob involved with them, smaller roles, this kind of dovetails perfectly into a bigger conversation, which is So you're doing a lot of either science fiction, horror films, serious, but you get your toe in the water a little bit with Loaded Weapon, small role in that, which is kind of, I think, your first real slapstick kind of comedy. But
I barely remember Loaded Weapon, but yes, you're right.
But then
that was also New Line. Was that also a New Line movie?
Was it? Yeah, I think it was also New Line. But then it happens, right? The beginning of the Phoenix Rising, and it was Dumb and Dumber. Dumb and Dumber, 1994, the Farrelly brothers, Jim Carrey, Jeff Daniels, and you are the disgruntled owner of a few dogs who need to get cleaned for a dog show, and it is a small role if you just look at the film singularly, but if you look at it as the stepping stone to the four Farrelly brothers, because I know you did some work for Me, Myself, and Irene, but it never made it into the film.
Right.
But if you take that away and you look at the three, and you've got Dumb and Dumber, Kingpin, There's Something About Mary. This was big. Did you? I would love to know, when you did the first one, did you have any idea that you were going to connect in a way where they were going to come back to you and continue to use you? What? Or was it happenstance? What happened on Dumb and Dumber that launched you as a mainstay in the Farrelly brothers' work?
Well, that's a good because it really did in a way. Rick Montgomery was casting the picture, I believe, and I knew him a little bit. And Bob again said, "Put my sister in, and I can't remember. There was one where, oh no, that was a different movie. But so they gave me this little role. And again, I had never met the Farrelly brothers, and this was their first movie also, and it was with New Line. So they basically they were told that Bob Shaye's sister is going to play this part.
Meet Mrs. Nugenbogen. I'm butchering that. Nugenborden.
Noogie. Well, Jeff Daniels was the one who called me Mrs. Noogie Burger, which was so great. And I knew it was with Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels. And again, I kind of did my job. I figured this woman, she owns dogs. So I had a houndtooth coat. I did something silly. I wanted a houndtooth print on the coat. And I asked him to do my hair like a French poodle, like sort of all the front, like little curls all in the front. And at the end of the scene, it was a very short scene. It was supposed to be just that I think I slammed the door. I opened the door and I see the dogs, and that's the end of the scene. So I said to Pete, when we got on set, I said, what if I open the door and instead of screaming, I kind of whine like a dog? Oh. And he said, that's a great idea. He said, yeah. And Pete's like, yeah, we could try that. And that sort of became the calling, instead of the way it was written as she screams. Mm-hmm. So Pete was very taken by that little moment, which, it was him receiving it also. And everybody loved the scene. And of course, the movie did quite well. And then I saw that they were getting ready to do Kingpin was next. And I read the script, and the character was described as the angriest, ugliest woman God ever let loose on the planet. I'll never forget that. If I forget every line in my life, I'll never forget that description. And I thought, I want to do that role. I'm going to do that role. So I wrote letters to Bradley Thomas and to the producers, and Charlie Wessler, who was another producer, and to Pete, and I wrote notes after note after note, and I kept calling, and they kept saying, we really don't think you're right for this role, but thank you for getting in touch with us. And I couldn't let go of it. And finally I called, I called Steve Stabler, who I think is still in the business. So really, he was a very, very sweet guy, and we had a nice friendship. And I worked out, I created that whole character. I figured, if you're the ugliest woman in the world, what could it be? You've got horrible skin. I put egg actually on my face. Egg yolk, so my skin was yellow. And then I took the white and I kind of made it all dry around my forehead. And I remember I ran my brows together, and I put oil, like Mazola oil, in my hair.
Yeah, the hair is the grossest thing I think I've ever seen.
Yeah. Just oil. I mean, literally, I just took oil and
the wheezing when you breathe. Like that's like there's just little things to it that are. And like I don't want to trust me when I tell you this has been such a joy for us, and you seem so wonderful, and like I don't want to make you uncomfortable or embarrassed, but there are things that you say that they're the funniest lines in the entire movie.
They are the funny. And Pete was saying, "Let's cut that," and I said, "I can make it work. I promise."
Oh.
I can make it work. And it did. It's still my favorite thing I've ever done. And actually, the outfit, I still have it. I bought it.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
So I went, but the part that was the best part of the whole thing for me was, so they didn't want to see me. And I begged Steve Stabler, and he said, "Okay, I'll set you up with an audition." So I went to the audition dressed exactly as you see me in the movie, with hair and the outfit. And I remember I had a little red Saab convertible, and I parked the car in the parking lot. When I got out of the car, the parking lot attendant kind of threw himself against the wall. He was like,
"Oh my God."
And I went in and I sat down on the floor. There were no chairs at the audition. And I remember Rick kept walking by, and all of a sudden he said, "Lynn?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Oh my God, I didn't even know it was you. I was going to call the police because we thought you were a homeless woman."
Cops, that's amazing.
So I went into the audition, and Pete and Bobby were there. And I came in as Mrs. Dumars and read the lines, and that was it. I walked out. I was so exhausted from the whole experience. And I called, I guess it was the next day, I called to thank Steve, thank them for seeing me. And Steve said, he said, "I'm not supposed to tell you, but we hired you on the spot."
Oh, that's great.
Amazing.
So that was it. That was how I got that job. And it changed my life. I mean, it really did.
It is. So I've watched the movie a million times. We rewatched these scenes, and I'm watching you say things like, "What is it about good sex that makes me have to crap?" And I'm like,
and Woody, you got to
Woody,
give Woody
his reaction is him throwing up in the background was incredible.
And he was totally supportive of me. He didn't know me from Adam. He was a big movie star, and he was so much fun to do that with, because he totally opened his world to me. He wasn't one of those movie stars that, I still have such affection for him. I've never really seen him since, almost maybe once or twice. And
that's the reunion that I want to see right there. I'd pay tickets for that reunion. Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to do all the gestures. You obviously know the most famous gesture in that movie. You're responsible for it, which is absolutely incredible. When we eventually edited this all together, Coster is going to throw that in there for good measure. But so you have this, I think it's the fork in the road. It's the pivot. It changes everything, right? Like, this movie now is so popular and your scenes are so epic. And I'm in my head thinking, what could outdo that? And then the Farrelly brothers say, "Hold my beer." And they bring you in as Magda in Something About Mary, which was equally absolutely incredible. I mean, like, how much fun was that? It just looked like you were having so much fun.
They made me audition for it.
Oh, really?
They were ruthless. Yeah. No, Pete is ruthless.
Okay.
I mean, I
can't even imagine anybody else in that role. Like, that is your role. You are Magda for the rest of your life.
I remember, I didn't do anything like that for the I went in and auditioned. And then when I got the job, we worked out the whole look. The boobs were, of course, I have the boobs here in my office.
Oh, stop it.
It says Magda's boobs. They're in a big sort of, you want to see them?
Yes. You know what, Lynn? It wasn't on my it wasn't on my bingo card for this interview, but yes, I'd like to see your boobs. Thank you.
All right, give me 1 minute.
You take your time.
Take them off the wall.
Absolutely take your time. Amazing. Oh, here they come.
Here they
come. Oh my God. Amazing. Absolutely amazing.
That's incredible.
There's a little plaque at the bottom that says, "Magda's boobs, there's something about Mary, 1990.
Oh my God. Magda, now that we're basically best friends, I just want you to know that should you ever want to downsize anything in your life or your apartment or your house or whatever, you know that I'm a phone call away from taking that off your hands for you. That is absolutely incredible.
It's funny because at the end of the day, because it was a 1-day shoot, when there's just that one shot. So I threw them in, I took them off because it was all a whole latex thing to my chest. And that was the only, the rest was just on a bodysuit. So I took it off and threw them in the garbage. And literally, as I was about to leave, I thought I should hang on to those. They're kind of funny and they're kind of silly. They're probably worth more in my house.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Trust me, we're the type of people that if we ever won the lotto, we wouldn't tell anyone, but there'd be signs.
Yeah.
And some of those signs would be like
that the Shawshank Bible.
There'd be a DeLorean parked in my driveway.
Yeah.
There'd be little things like that. So it's just the kissing the dog scene, the banter between you and Cameron Diaz. I mean, you were
the Tan Queen stuff. Like on the internet, still, the tanning community worships Magda. Actually,
Is that true? That's crazy.
So like it's my Magda season.
The kissing the dog scene was also not in the movie. And when I was just, kind of lifting him up, and I had all this latex, I had all this makeup on, this tan makeup, and I'm pretty sure that, and the dog went for it. So I went with it. I started kissing him, and he was licking me and licking me. And I remember Pete, everybody was laughing so hard. They were trying not to. Cameron was crying. She was laughing so hard.
I can't. I mean, this is to me the most incredible talent in the world, is to be in that situation and keep it together. I don't know how any of you do it. It's incredible.
Well, I just kept thinking, don't break, because if I break, I'm in a room. And I knew it was going to be great, you know. And Pete, I mean, I could see out of the corner of my eye, everybody was like this, trying not to look at me. And when he called cut, he came out and Pete just said, "That's what movie magic is." He said, you just made this scene. And it's true. It's one of the famous pictures and scenes in the movie. So I've had good luck. That's some of it. I've had good luck.
Luck favors the prepared. I think that you've done a lot to really put yourself in a good position to receive. Like, even when you say you owe so much to your brother, I can assure you that both of our sisters, in a quiet moment, if no one was listening, would say that, the same thing. And I would say I owe so much to my sister. Like, I'm sure your brother's trajectory in his career also stemmed from growing up with this sit in her room, be an actress, passionate, sister. Like, I have a 13-year-old daughter who is all she cares about is acting. And when you were talking about this way in which that you were, in your room and it was your life and you were passionate about it, it just reminds me so much of how my daughter feels about acting as well. And it's exciting. It's very fun.
It's one thing to choose being an actress, which is, I don't quite even get that 100%, because I never did choose that. I mean, but it's really comes from somewhere else, and it's an undeniable urge to pretend. I mean, which is a very childlike thing that often gets shut down. And now with all the crap and the video games and the things and everything is done for you. You have no imagination.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to have an imagination.
Yeah.
I mean, it's as a child, too much stuff. I mean, we had nothing. I had scissors and ribbons and a pen and dolls. That was my world. Then the dolls and I had a mirror, big mirror on so the dolls and me, we'd make clothes for them. I mean, it was a whole enriching your imagination. And I'm sure there are plenty of parents that, provide their children with that kind of stuff. But it's harder today because of the phone and the thing.
100%. Well, it's so interesting because Reese, my oldest, the only thing she loves more than these musicals and acting is crocheting. And I do think to your point, I do think that there's this synergy. Oh yeah, she loves it. She crochets me because I love the Muppets. Yeah, she crochets me these like little Muppet characters and everything, and she made me a blanket for my birthday. But to your point, there is this synaptic firing in the brain of creative people that draws them to those kind of things. To the scissors, the ribbon, the pretending. It all fits into this kind of profile of someone who likes those kind of things. So you're 100% right. And the worst thing you can do is inadvertently douse that with water by overstimulating with electronics and not giving them enough space to run around and be wild and creative. Lynn, so again, this role is just so incredible. And then we get to Detroit Rock City. And this is in 1999. And what's exciting about this is the previous, and again, you have such a wonderful attitude about this because I don't know that you cared. You loved working, you loved what you're doing, but this was a substantial role. I mean, you were playing in a very popular big movie. You were playing this really the character arc of overprotective, strict, but then this touchingness at the end where you kind of had to let it go, and your son has to enter the world. And it's fun because you're hearing things like, for us, we're hearing like Cobo Hall, and I'm like, yep, that's Detroit. And then the music soundtrack and everything about it. Tell me a little bit about Detroit Rock City.
Well, it was, first of all, I had auditioned for it. Valerie McCaffrey was the casting director. And I mean, nobody really, the good news is nobody really gave me things, but they did give me opportunities. And I think that's a really important thing to recognize is that people don't have to give you stuff, but you have to create opportunity or take opportunities that shows up. So I got this part, and Adam Rifkin is just wonderful. I mean, he's a very interesting person. I barely see him. I don't think he sort of hides away. I mean, I have no idea really like what he's doing now, but when he's in your world, he's a very, very intense director. I mean, will make you do it over and over and over and over and over until you get it right. And he's but very workable. I mean, he was also as great with your ideas. The last line of the movie of "They grow up fast, don't they?" was my idea, was my line, because he said, "We don't know how to end the scene." And so I said, well, what about they letting them go? You know, they grow up fast, don't they? That's the line.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I'm very proud of that. You know, that, I mean, I don't tell people I wrote the last line of the movie kind of thing, but I did. I wrote the last line of the movie. So he's wonderful. And again, very clear about what he wants and how he wants you to try it. He's a strict director. And we just hoped it was good. I was in Canada with him for 2 months. It was probably one of the biggest roles I'd been given. And Sam Huntington and all the guys, you know, they were a wonderful bunch. And it was really fun. I mean, we really had a good time doing it. And I loved playing, you know, the smoking, the chain smoking.
Oh, the overprotective, super religious.
Oh my God.
Yeah, you were super
it's
intense.
Funny, that year, it's like the Almost Famous mom. It's like the intense moms that in the end.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I love the little wig I had. Actually, my hair kind of looks that way right now as I'm looking at it. But it was cut too short. But anyway.
It's funny the things you remember.
Really. But and it was a really just excellent experience. It was the longest I'd ever been away on location. And it really, I mean, I sort of edged into bigger stuff in a very wonderful way. Nothing was fearful, you know, because I get very scared very quickly and very easily. I mean, you know, I have to, and it's good when things sort of move in a rhythm, basically, I guess is a better way to describe it. So it was a really wonderful experience for me. And as I said, Adam was just great. And the other actors, Giuseppe, who is a very interesting guy. He sort of came back, and I think I met his sister who works at Cantor's here in LA.
Oh, okay.
And I actually have his number. I keep thinking I'm going to try and reach out to him. Oh no, that was Jimmy DeBello. Jimmy DeBello plays one of the kids too. Giuseppe, I don't know where Giuseppe is. He's doing his own thing somewhere. But it was a wonderful group of people. And so that kind of, you know, everything leads you somewhere, I guess. You know, you have to, and sometimes there's lapses. I try not to worry too much about what's gonna, you know, especially now I don't do that anymore. You know, my life is full, and I'm happy with everything I've created so far. But I mean, there's good stuff coming up, so I'm good.
Well, so again, only because I've said this 1,000 times and I'm trying to be respectful of your time, we could talk more about outside of the 80s and 90s. We are going to bring up just one item outside of the 80s and 90s, which is, I don't want to call it a surprise hit. It's not that it's a surprise hit. It just kind of caught us out of nowhere. Like, I wasn't expecting this. I didn't hear about it. And all of a sudden one day I watch a little cartoon called Common Side Effects. And you're Sonia in this, right? And
yeah, I haven't seen it yet.
Oh my gosh.
It's so good. It's super popular.
Like, so it is like, it's ascending. It's all over the place. It's very popular. People love it. It's a Cartoon Network, but it's being
on Max.
On
HBO.
Max, on HBO Max. But people are just going nuts over it.
You know, it's crazy because I've never really done. I have a good voice. I know it, and I'm pretty good with voices. But I never had really been asked to do anything with it. And finally, my agents, I said, you know, you should at least, you know, submit me for a few things and just to see how I do. And it was interesting that I got that job. And you know, you go into a studio and you don't see the imagery either. Yeah. It's just it's pretty hard to do. You only read your lines. You don't read, there's no one reading against you or anything. And, you know, I was sort of a newbie at it. And my agent just said, you know, Just go in and read the lines quickly. You don't have to make a big deal. And I can't even remember the very first audition, but when I got the job, there were four episodes, and it was quite, and it was a real role, so of this grandmother. And when we recorded it, I didn't even really meet the people. It's kind of a very odd, they're all in the booth, and there were like 8 people in the booth. There were a lot of people, and they were very supportive. And I remember they let me improvise a few things, because I sort of punctuated a line with a line, and they loved it.
Yeah.
And they said, "You want to say anything, if you want to," so they kind of let me go very quickly. And I had never heard anything about it ever since.
Oh my gosh.
And now I see it's on, but I haven't seen it yet.
Oh,
so I don't know.
You got to watch it. So it's so funny, because similar, I feel like this is a trend in your career. You start one place, it opens the door for another place, it goes to another place. This is going to be your 4th chapter, because all of a sudden you're going to be popping up on all of these animated cartoons.
Season Pixar stuff.
I'm telling you,
wow.
you heard it here first. Not that I'm
okay. I'm going to watch it tonight.
This is going to be really. You tell your agent she knocked it out of the park by getting you in this, because it is very popular right now.
Oh, that's great to know. That really is.
Yeah.
The one thing I did see, there was a promo for it, and I just heard myself say, "Good morning," and I thought that was me.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And I think then someone said that was the last line in the first episode or something, and I really just happened to randomly. I didn't even know what I was hearing almost.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
Well, that's great.
Well, Lin, you've been so unbelievably just wonderful to talk with, and we appreciate you giving us time, going all the way back to just reaching out to us and giving us a little bit of love.
Well, you guys are great, and I'm happy to talk again and stuff. I know, because we never got into Insidious or any of the stuff that's also going on now as well. And I mean, I like talking about it. I enjoy it. I mean, it's a good thing for me also to revisit some of these places. It gives me a core again of energy to move forward. Because the one thing about being an actress or an actor, as you know, is you sort of, when you're not doing it, the world sort of, the world takes on a different shape in a way. I mean, it's not, and it's wonderful for me to revisit things I've done too, as it re-energizes me and makes me remember, to unclench my fists.
Yeah. Well, the good news is if this is something you like, after everybody sees what you've done with our show, your agent is going to get bombarded by about 3,000 other podcasts asking you to do it. Oh. So just remember, Buzzn The Tower is the priority. Let your agent know that it has to be us first, and then anybody else, and then that's fine. No, I genuinely, your generosity with us today was great, and it was just an absolute blast. And we're always excited when we admire from afar, and we've been lucky enough on our show to have a handful of different actors and actresses and influencers come on the show. And there's nothing better than when someone who we really like turns out to seemingly be a wonderful person. And you seem to be just wonderful. And we've watched other interviews. We were kind of, I think, ready for you to be wonderful because we had seen how great you were, but this has just been so much fun. And like I said, if you need to get rid of the boobs, you let me know, send them over here. I'd be happy to take care of them for you.
I'm going to wear them.
Well, if you
I can use them. Yeah.
If I ever,
just the first clip.
I know if I ever find out that you're in Ann Arbor and you didn't let us know so that we could at least take you out for a drink and show off the boobs, we're going to be very upset. So you got to let us know for sure.
Well, I would seriously, I enjoy talking to you so much. My manager and agent get protective of my time and all that stuff. But I have, this is my time. This is what I enjoy talking about and discussing. And it re-energizes me too, to feel that you're interested in what I do. And, there's a fragility. It's going to make me almost cry a little bit. I mean, there's a fragility to what we do and who we are and why we're able to exhibit and bring forward what we do in the work. I mean, it's still all the same person and the same. And, I need stimulation too. And, walking my dog doesn't do it. I mean, And even telling her about the movie doesn't do it.
Yeah.
I get it.
So I'm very open and happy to talk to you guys whenever about anything. You know, I think it's fun to
Thank you.
hear your ideas, and your thoughts too have been very valuable to me, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you. We definitely want to send you a sweatshirt from the show because it's just kind of a token of our appreciation for the time that you spent with us today. And we will absolutely take you up on meeting again. And if we have any big, brilliant ideas,
90s comedy memorabilia.
I was gonna say, if we have any wonderful big ideas, they're coming your way because you seem like someone who nurtures ideas, and that's always fun to have people like that in your life.
Totally. I mean, that's what your juice is, you know. I mean, you got to have, and to not be afraid of it, you know, sort of take it in. Like I said, I think everybody has there's a certain thing when it gets too personal or too real, you kind of puff up a little bit and push it away. And that's exactly what you should not do. I mean, it's really, you really got to open up and because that's where your next ideas come from too.
Absolutely.
So, anyway, so it's wonderful to talk to you. You're both great guys. And,
thank you.
Thanks so much, Lynn.
and your show is great.
Thank you so
my
much.
God.
So now we're
That's
done.
the clip.
Now
That's the
you're
clip.
done. Yeah. Coster,
Play that over and over.
Coster, I need that audio to be my ringtone when anybody calls me. It's just Lin Shaye saying, "Your show is great. Your show is great. Your show is great."
You can use it. You have my permission to use it. So go ahead.
I guess we probably should have asked permission, but thank you for it anyways. No, Lynn, thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your Sunday. And again, thank you so much for your generosity with your time.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Have a great time too, you guys.